welcome to this week's episode of the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood podcast, previously known as the Bodacity Show. And I'm here today with the fabulous one and only Selena Willows. Hi, Selena, welcome. Happy to see you and have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about a really interesting topic about overcoming fear and especially helping your kids and or you as parents overcome fear specifically of water. But I think a lot of this is going to be applicable in a lot of areas. So I'm going to read Selena's official bio, and then we're going to get the juicy, tidbits and details about her and launch into this topic of, really figuring out why is it so hard for kids to try new things, and how as parents do you help them with that? And how do you apply that to yourself as a parent as well? So welcome, Selena. I'm glad you're here. We've talked a couple times, but we never met actually in person. So it's nice to actually see your lovely face and your smile. So let me tell you a bit about Selena. She is passionate about removing fear in children, especially in the water. She believes that the most effective way to help young children overcome their fears and be safer in the water is to put the power in the parents' hands. By giving parents all the tools they need to help their children overcome fear and learn to swim, parents are better equipped to recognize the problem before it becomes a danger and avoid water-related trauma. All right, now, like I said, this sounds very specific, and those of you who have this issue will be happy to hear the specifics about this, but I also want the rest of you to be listening with an ear towards what are the principles and ideas that get applied to breaking through fears of any and all kinds, as a child, as an adult, etc. All right, so welcome. I'm again happy to have you here. So tell us something about you that people wouldn't guess or wouldn't know by reading your bio or looking at your website. What's something? And I always tell people, the juicier, the better. So
yeah, the juicier, the better. Let's see. So I'm going to spare you all the certification and time in the water and all that stuff. People can read that on my bio, on my site. It's all there. Something you wouldn't know about me is that I am a avid traveler, and I prefer to live in new places than to visit them. So we have lived in all kinds of places.
Awesome. Okay. And people always ask me, what's your favorite so far? And that's so hard when you've traveled, because it's like, well, what's your favorite food? There's lots of foods I love, but I wouldn't want to eat them every day, all day long. So, so do you have some favorite places you've been though?
I don't have favorite places. I have favorite things. So my favorite places in the world include palm trees, beaches, and rogue chickens, for example.
Did you say rogue chickens?
Rogue chickens, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about and where you're talking about, because I've been to places.
That feeling, right? And if you've been to a place like that, those are places that tend to attract me. That is a thing that I love about some places.
Yes.
That you don't get anywhere. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a count on the number of countries you've been to so far?
I haven't counted in a while, but I do have one of those scratchy maps.
Oh, okay.
And so every time we go somewhere new, we take it out of the frame, we scratch it off, put it back in. It's a whole thing.
Cool. I've never heard of the scratchy maps, but yeah, I'm on 30. It was 34, but I think it's now 35 and counting, maybe 36, somewhere in there, somewhere between 34 and 36 and counting. Which is, it sounds like a lot, but I know people who've been to 100 and some odd countries. So I feel like I'm a kind of a piker. So it's a good start though.
I think it depends how you count it.
Yeah.
Right. If you count a touchdown in the plane, then that's going to boost your number. Did you get out of the airport? Is that, you know what I mean? It just depends how you count it, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely not just an airport visit. It's you gotta be there for at least a few days and experience the country. I personally, most of those places I've been for at least a week, if not longer, in almost every case. All right, anyways, that's off the topic, but tell us a little bit about why you're so passionate about this topic, about supporting kids and parents and all of this. How did you get into this work? Because you do coaching work with clients and workshops on this and so forth, right? And working with in the pool and that kind of thing. So how did you get into this work? Why does it matter to you so much?
So it started with the swimming. It started just as this was a job that I could get at 14, and that was fine at the time. Coming back to it though, has to do with my child and my own history. So when my son was 18 months, he fell backwards in the water and he had what we call a near drowning experience. He had night terrors for 6 months. It was horrendous. And that came and got me. And I didn't find out until years later why. But what I found out ultimately around my early 40s was that I had had a traumatic experience as a child. I lacked oxygen. I couldn't breathe. And as a result of that, that has become for me a massive piece of why I do this, is so that children don't ever have to feel the kind of fear that comes with not being able to breathe. That for me is the thing.
Well, and I think all fear tends to make us kind of, for sure, hold our breath and kind of go, do the freeze response, or in many cases, the fight or flee or freeze kind of response. But it sounds like it's really in your cellular memory, that fear and that traumatic experience when you were little. And that's kind of pushed you your whole life to want to deal with that and overcome it for you, and now for other people.
Yep.
They don't experience it, or that they overcome it when they do.
Yeah.
So that makes lots of sense as far as why you're doing it. And how did you turn it into a business? We'll get into some of the details of how to overcome the fear, but how did you turn it into a business?
Yeah, so I would consider that until more recently, it wasn't a business. It was a hobby that did really, really well.
Right.
And it started with, I, figured it out for my son. He was having a lot of trouble learning to swim as a result of this trauma. And, what's available in a lot of places doesn't have, and we can talk about this more after, but there's an emotional component that needs to be supported when a child is learning something, when anybody is learning something new that they are afraid of. And so in my research to find how to help him with this emotional component and how to help him with the physical skills, because these are hard to explain to a child, and some adults have trouble with their coordination, right? I discovered a new way of teaching. And the next thing I knew, my friends were calling me and asking me to teach their children.
Right.
And then their friends.
Yes.
And then their friends. And it exploded.
Right.
It turned into a business for me when I realized that it was not scalable, that I needed to get out of the water for my own family and my own time. And for me, I was doing this thing that I love that is so fulfilling for me. And when I'm in the water with a child, I'm in flow, and so it was so hard to say no to people and step out because I wanted to help so much. And so this is where I made that shift and decided that this was going to become a business, and that I had to find a way to make it scalable, repeatable, and that it could run without me being right in the center of it.
Such an important realization, and we could spend the whole talk talking about that, but because I think that that's so often the case. People get into it because of their purpose or because something that they wanted solved in their life, and they want to support people. They often end up doing it for free, especially women, and it's only until they really start to have to turn people down in a way that they go, hey, this is not working, or until it starts to infringe on their life. So great realization. We'll talk later about how you do it on the whole scaling thing, but let's talk about fear right now. What makes some kids afraid of the water and some kids aren't? What's behind that?
That's a very, very good question. So I would say it's a mix, right? I think that some of this fear, I believe that some of this fear is innate, right? We are at the base of the matter. We are animals, we are mammals. And mammals do have in the wild an innate sense of respect for the water. And I think that that is part of it. Now, we do see children all the time that throw themselves in the pool, don't seem to have any fear. and some who go way beyond this little bit of respect for the water and are terrified. And I think those are learned behaviors.
Mm,
Those are learned feelings. If you had a parent who ever experienced something in the water,
mhm,
or um, if you experienced something in the water and your parent was very afraid for you in that moment, and then we pass this kind of anxiety and fear of the water down to our children. And we
mhm.
do this in a lot of ways that are very, very specific. We grab them by the edge of the pool and we pull them away and we say, that's dangerous, don't go there, and depending on how we say it,
Mhm.
it can affect the child more or less, right?
Absolutely.
you know if a child has ever fallen in the water, how that was managed and what the adults were doing around and what was happening, that will have an impact.
Absolutely. Well, and like you stick with the water piece of it, but I really want to universalize each one of these because I think it's so applicable in every area. How people are around others with regards to passing on their own fears and anxieties and the projections that they may have based on their own experiences or passed on anxieties gets painted all over that other person. And if it's a little person, they don't have any ability to discern if this is true or not. They just assume it's the truth because their truth telling, adult said this was the way it is. So what are some tips that you have for let's start with parents of little kids when it comes to helping them not be afraid of things? What are some ways to bring up kids that are not afraid of things?
Yeah, so the first part to me is that you have to keep your own anxiety and fear about whatever it is to yourself, and not just in your actions and your words, but in your whole vibration. And I don't that's a thing that's maybe hard to understand for some people. But if you are someone who has anxiety and you can feel when you're feeling anxious and feel when your body is calm, this is what I mean, right? Not, if you know that you worry about the water, being around the water, well, then you need to take a couple of extra breaths when you're interacting with your child around the water to make sure that what comes through is love and support and care and compassion and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that enables a child to make their own decisions
Mm-hmm.
about whether or not this is dangerous or scary. We can give them the facts
Mm-hmm.
at an age appropriate level,
Yeah.
but that's it.
Well, and it's fascinating. I was literally at Aquasize this morning for the first time in quite a while, and there was a kids class right after, little kids, 3, 4 years old, and it was one mom who said 3 times to her about 4-year-old son, are you ready for your swimming class? Are
Mhm.
you okay? Are you ready? And you could just hear and feel in the energy that she was assuming her child was going to be scared and nervous and so forth. And so very likely the child would be scared and nervous because that's what he's indirectly being told to be. Another mother was like, all right, let's go. Yeah, we need to go swimming. And it was like, and the kid was very excited. It was so clear the difference in the grounding of the parent and therefore the impact on the child. So how do parents what is a good response to a child's fear? Because I've seen everything from, oh, suck it up, get over it, get in there, to, okay, it's all right, and let's just go and we'll leave. What's a good response to a fear in your child, be it about water or anything else?
Yeah. So in my experience, and this is, I've done this now with over 2,000 children.
Holy,
In my experience, yes.
a
In my
lot.
keeping a middle ground is best, right? Getting really curious about what this is about for them. What are they feeling? How is it manifesting? So a child who is now the first part is making sure that the child is the one bringing you the feeling, right? If you come in and you say, oh, it's okay, I know you're scared.
Mhm,
I don't know anything. I don't know anything about what's happening inside of anybody else's body. And I
mhm,
can't unless that person tells me. So we start with a lot of questions. A lot of questions. How are
mhm,
you feeling? Oh, you don't feel so great. What does that feel like in your body? Okay, what do you think that it's trying to tell you?
mhm,
Oh, it feels like scared. Okay. Well, we're allowed to be scared. And so this is the next part, is validation of the feelings.
Mhm.
Validating the feelings. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to not want to. And then what I do is then I bring in the idea of courage, that we can feel multiple things at once, that they are all valid and okay, and that we can feel scared and do it anyway. And that is being brave.
Mm. Mhm.
So we talk about the bravery. And then there's a tough love situation in there that happens with me.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, we talk about, what was that like? Did you do it? And
Mhm.
make sure, we make sure that the child is the one who has indicated that they did it. It's their journey, right? So rather than saying, you did it, I ask, did you do it? And how was it? And we let the child lead. Lots of questions, lots and lots of questions.
Okay, so you kind of jumped over the tough love section. So tell us what that means.
Yes.
So you bring in the courage and you equate that, you tell them that you can feel the fear and do it anyways. And then after they've done it, some ownership and did you do it? Which I think is a brilliant question. What does tough love look like? What do you do in that interim stage?
Right. So tough love looks like, I don't want to go underwater. I understand, but we're going to do it anyway.
Okay.
That's what it looks like. And then we go underwater, right?
Okay.
And if a child is really, really scared, we constantly read those feelings, right? And now this is where, and again, we'll come back to this, but this is where the parent knows so much better than I do, than any instructor, right? Because as parents, we can read our children so well. And so this is the moment where a parent will be able to say, like, I know this is difficult. We're going to do it anyway. I love you. I've got you. You are safe with me. Mommy keeps you safe. Do you want to go underwater with me holding you here? Or do you want to go underwater with me holding you here? Or do you want me to come underwater with you? Or do you want me to stay on top to watch?
Mm.
Right? So small choices,
Mhm.
but we have to do it anyway. Just like if you asked a child to get dressed in the morning, they have to get dressed in the morning. If you want to help them do that, you can give them two options and say, do you want to wear this or this?
Mhm.
But you have to put one on.
I love it. Okay, so what I hear in that is kind of three components. One, you hold them as capable. You assume that they can do this. You don't assume they can't. You make the assumption that they are going to take the leap, make the brave choice and action. So there's kind of, in sales, they call it an assumptive close. And then if necessary, you give them choices so that they have accountability and they're in the driver's seat. So they're making the choice. You're not making them do it. You're giving them the choice of how they're going to do it, which I think is brilliant. So I just want to recap because I think there's so much value in all the things you just said. When we're dealing with fears, kids in the water, adults in the water, or any fear, here's some steps. Are they bringing the other person? Are they bringing the feeling, or are you projecting it on them? Are you making assumptions? I know I have a friend who says she's highly sensitive and intuitive, and she is. And a lot of times it's projection, not reading the room or reading the other person, and assuming that that is theirs, and it's not. So are they bringing the feeling versus projection? And then being curious and asking questions, including how are you feeling, and really checking in. Curiosity as a key to understanding versus just assuming. And then validation of the feeling. It's okay to feel this, whatever this it may be. And then really introducing courage, that it's okay to feel the fear and you are capable of feeling the fear and doing it anyways, being brave, being courageous. And then hold them as capable of that. Make an assumption that they can do it, give them some options or some choices if necessary, and encourage the action of them being brave. And then at the end, really kind of giving them the ownership of and getting them to recognize that they were accountable for that success and that breakthrough, that it's not you, it's not the circumstance, they did it. So that there's ownership. I think those are brilliant steps to breakthroughs. And I think it's a great process. So how did you come to that process? Was that something just evolutionary that you developed as you work with kids? Did you learn that from somewhere?
Hmm. I think I learned it along the way in a lot of ways. And as I practiced it, I know that it evolved. I know it did. It had to. Over 2,000 children. It absolutely must have evolved.
Mhm.
My mother is a kindergarten teacher. So
Ah,
that is a key piece here, is that both of my parents are in education. And in fact, my entire family
mhm.
is in education and safety.
Wow.
So this is part of this is just in me, right? And I grew up with this. My mother's a kindergarten teacher, so a lot of talking to little children.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of it was taken from that. A lot was taken from the way I was raised.
Mhm.
Um, and then a lot of reading, a lot of books, a lot of research. I am an avid reader. You can find me on Goodreads if anybody wants to. Selena Willows. I read an enormous amount.
Uh-huh.
And anytime I see something that I think might work, I try it. Because how else am I going to know if it's going to work in my context? And
Exactly.
so, yeah, so it's been a lot of trial and error, a lot of reading and finding new ideas and thinking outside of the box, really, truly, like not taking for granted that because we know something, that it is still something we know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a brilliant line. Just because we think we know something is not necessarily something we still know. So I know you've got a background in teaching the military and cold water survival skills and police water safety and so forth. So is there much of a difference between helping kids overcome fear in the water and adults?
Yes, I would say there's an enormous difference. Adults come with a lot more baggage.
Mm.
There's a lot more to filter through, a lot more, I call it garbage that you're dragging around with you, right? There's
Mhm.
just a lot more, or compost, if you will, because it can be reused. But we carry around a lot. And
Mhm.
to wade through it and find the pieces that are causing an issue in an adult, it's a lot longer process. One of the things I love about working with children is that it's fairly streamlined. Now, every once in a while, I have a child who has come to me with trauma or repeated trauma, and then we have some major work to do. But most children who have had just mom's anxiety around them or dad's anxiety around them or whatever, and just the normal kind of things that we see all the time, uh, it's really fast. These
Mhm.
children overcome this fear and are swimming within 90 minutes.
Mhm. Amazing.
Um,
Yeah.
and I love how fast it is. And
Yeah.
so I stick to the kids because it's just so fulfilling to see it happen so fast.
Yes,
Yeah,
that makes lots of sense.
yeah.
So, does this apply, do you think, to healing a lot of different kinds of traumas? For instance, I'm thinking of a family member of mine who was in a car accident, and she refuses to, she's a very nervous passenger, and she refuses to drive. And this accident was 5 or 7 years ago. Um, is there a way that this can kind of be applied to other traumas and challenges?
I would say in my experience, absolutely. We touched on some of the trauma that I realized or recognized that I had. And I worked with a therapist. I developed CPTSD. I had memories literally come back to me from nowhere.
Mm.
Um, and I had CPTSD and the flashbacks, all of it. And what I recognized in healing myself, um, and this is trauma from when I was 4 years old. So what I recognized in healing myself was that the things that I was doing with the children, I was able to do with myself as well,
Mm.
right? So I would have a moment where I would be, say, afraid to be alone in the house. And I would think to myself, there's someone in the basement, right? My brain would come up with this scenario that it would invent and whatever. So your friend may say, like, if I get into that car, this thing is going to happen again, right? And that is the fear. Um, and by not going into the basement to check,
Mm.
I'm teaching my brain that actually it's not a thing, right? I'm exposing myself to that level of fear
Mhm.
and choosing for it to be okay. Whereas in the past, I would run down to the basement to check. And by doing that, I'm justifying it.
Ah,
I'm telling myself that actually there is something to be afraid of, so you best go check. So your friend, by not getting in the car every time she avoids it, she is re-justifying this fear to herself.
mhm.
And so when I have a child in the water who has had trauma,
Mhm.
the key component is exposure therapy.
Mm.
You're
Okay.
underwater. I understand that. We're going to do it. And we do it, do it, and we do it, and we do it, and we do it until it's not a thing anymore,
Right.
and with the right support and love and caring.
Mhm.
That is, and that is how I was taught to get through my stuff too. My therapist told me exposure therapy. When you have that thought, you don't go check,
Mhm.
right? When you have that feeling, right? Sit in the fear and allow it and
Mhm.
remind yourself that you are safe, that
Mhm.
this is not then. I am here. I am now. I spent a long time reminding myself what year it was.
Mm.
I am
Mhm.
40 years old.
Yeah.
I am in Ottawa. I am not in that location. I am not in that time.
Yes.
I am here now
Yes.
and I am safe. And this
Yes.
is all the same stuff I tell the children. You're safe.
Mhm.
You're here with me now and you are safe.
Yes.
Right now, we're not underwater. Right now, we're going to talk about it because we're not underwater. Right? When a child explodes and they're crying and I don't want to, and you can't talk to them, it's because they're already there in that fear. We need to pull them back.
Right.
Right?
To be present in the moment.
That's right.
Yeah.
Here, right now, I am safe. And your friend, when she gets in the car, in that moment, right now in the here, I am safe. Even when the car's moving, I am safe right now. Right
Mhm.
now, I'm safe. I'm still safe. Right now, I'm safe. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I have um a very traumatic childhood, and one of the things that still happens occasionally is if I'm lying in bed and I hear someone come in the door, even if I know who it is, uh, it triggers me back to my mother's fourth husband, who was very violent, and him coming in the door was literally fear for your life, and and my stomach clenches, and I get kind of that frozen and clench my breath, and there's this immediate visceral reaction. And so what I have been kind of just intuitively doing is focusing on, it's not that, it's not him, it's not then, I'm in my bed, feel your body, that kind of bringing myself present to the moment. Didn't realize that was exactly what I should be doing, so it's good to know that that is, and it's effective.
Pull yourself back.
Yeah, in taking me out of the reaction. And because that reaction can literally linger in my body. It used to be that I would then be too tense to go to sleep and so forth. But it's just like, okay, no, that's just an old experience. That's not happening right now, right here, right now. So what would you say to, we do have to wrap up soon, but what would you say to parents who have a child who got a lot of fear, perhaps around water or swimming, or just a lot of fear around something? What kind of support do they need to call in?
You know, honestly, it's just you, mom and dad. It's you. You can call in external support, you can. But at the end of the day, you are the one there with them, right? And we don't need to make, in my opinion, we don't need to make a mountain out of a molehill, right? We're afraid of bath time, we're afraid of hair washing or whatever it is. We have screaming and yelling and, trying to escape and all this. Those are all fight, flight, fear. That's normal, you know? Um, a fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all normal, normal, normal. Okay. And so, in my opinion, it's not necessary to call someone in for that. But what you do need to call upon is your ability to hold space for your child and not have an agenda, right? I understand that it's time for bath time, and I understand that you want to get her hair washed because you got to get to bed and you have the rest of your day, and tomorrow you got to do it all over again. But pick your battles. Is it really necessary tonight? Can you do it by giving space for it and taking time with it? Or are you truly in a rush? Maybe bath time with hair washing waits till Saturdays. So you
Mm.
can take time and be patient and meet your child where they are at in that moment and slowly move them down the line to where you want them, rather than be saying, I got to get this kid in bed in 30 minutes.
So that's an interesting, because I think that's probably I would have, if I was a parent. One of the question I would have is, when am I enabling or exacerbating the fear, and when am I not? Because by the kid yelling and screaming, I don't want my hair washed, I don't want my hair washed, and then not washing the hair, I would be afraid that that would reinforce the behavior of, if I kick and scream, then I don't have to deal with this, and reinforces the fear as being valid. So how do you deal with that, right? Because I hear you, meet them where they are, and when is it enabling the fear or exacerbating it by,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm really glad you asked that, because that's actually a very, very big point in here that's very necessary to explain, is that once you've said to a child, this is happening, it has to happen.
Mm.
So if you had said, we are washing hair tonight, and then it all starts, okay, but you just committed and now you're in it. No, you're in it. This is where the pick your battles beforehand comes. Are you doing this tonight? Because if you said you were, you are. If you don't, you are teaching your child that throwing a fit,
Mhm.
that this fear response is going to work. And even if you even if you think that, like, well, we only did it once, or this and that, or the child learns that they just have to complain for longer. Like, it just gets worse and worse. The tantrums get worse. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because they know that there's that wiggle room. They just have to find it.
Yes,
This is about boundaries, though,
yes.
right? At the end of the day, this is about boundaries.
Well, and it's interesting because it takes me back to, I was working with a lady who had a dog who had a behavior problem and wouldn't go out, was fearful of going out, wouldn't go to the end of the block, et cetera, et cetera. Brought in a dog whisperer. The dog whisperer said, the dog does not have a problem, you have a problem. Put the leash on the dog, take the dog out the door, take him to the end of the block and come back. And the lady said, but she said, he said to her, no, you are not hearing me. Put the leash on the dog, take the dog out the door, go down to the end of the block and come back. No, you are not hearing me. Put the leash on the dog, take the dog out the door. And so she did. And the kind of assumption of, we're just doing this, the issue was not the dogs. The issue was the parents around, but buying into the fear and the insecurities and so forth. So it's a really interesting dance and balance, I think, to find. And if you are the kind of people who would like some support and guidance through navigating that balance, whether it's your child's fear of water or your child's fear of something else, how do people find you? How do they get more information? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me at Swim to Safety. So swim, SWIM, to TO, safety, SAFTEY.com. And that's where you'll find the bulk of our information, my site, everything, as well as we have a free guide for parents on helping children, specifically in the water, but there's some really great key components in there. And if your child is struggling with swimming lessons, this guide will help you along the way.
So sorry, I just noticed that Catherine said, hi, Selena, conquering fear is a big deal. You picked 9/11 to air this, which I was thinking of that earlier today and thinking it is a good time for this topic. And so for them to connect with you, the information is swimtosafety.com.
That's correct. That's correct. Swimtosafety.com. And then if you're on social, Swim to Safety by Selena, SELENA. And you can DM me in there. You can find me on socials there, Facebook, Instagram.
Okay, awesome. And I know you do work with kids individually, but obviously that needs to be in person. And so you're located where, if parents are in your location?
Yeah, so I'm currently located in Ottawa, and I also teach in Montreal, but we actually, the way I've scaled this is a virtual component. So we teach parents online how to, I have a whole courseware on how to help your child overcome the fear and even get them swimming. And if I may, well, we guarantee that your child will swim within 10 practices of under 10 minutes.
Wow, that's a pretty bold guarantee. I love it. All right. So if you have a child who is afraid of the water specifically, or frankly, of almost anything, bath time, hair washes, spiders, snakes, whatever, much of this is likely very applicable and transferable. So reach out, check out her program, go and get a free guide and connect with Selena. She's got a huge heart, has a passion for supporting children to break through their fears, and inadvertently and indirectly and perhaps actually directly to help parents stop being fearful for and about and on behalf of and all over their kids so that their kids don't pick that up. So if you are dealing with fears, this may be a great connection for you as well. Thank you so much for being here, Selena. What's one last thing you'd like to leave? Well, actually, before you do that, I just want to reiterate and remind people that I have the prosperity planning quarterly workshop coming up this Saturday. That's the 16th. For those of you that are tuning in and listening to this on YouTube or Apple or Spotify after the fact, then we do this every quarter. I do this complimentary this year, hands-on workshop where you really get a grip on where are you going and how can you, who do you need to be in order to do what you need to do so that you can have the results and the impact that you want to have. It's planning with the difference, and it really does help you pull up and work on your business. Great tools and resources that are different that will help you get some more organization and really put you in the driver's seat of your business, because there's way too many women who are struggling with getting shit done and not swimming in the overwhelm so that they can actually be effective and make money. And so I would really love you to join us this Saturday. You can go to bodacity.ca/planning, bodacity.ca/planning. It's every quarter. So if you've missed this one, don't worry, sign up for the next one. All right, so that's my little plug. I really want people to overcome their fears of not being successful because they are not sure what to focus on next, what to do next, what's the next step. So we approach it with many of the steps that you're talking about here. Curiosity, who are you? What's your why? Where do you want to go? What's the difference you want to be in the world? And then working through the limiting beliefs, the limiting fears, and so forth, so that you can then get to the other side of intentionality and commitment, which is really where you take kids in your process. So please do join us for that. And if you would like to check us out more, please go to our Facebook group, the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood on Facebook. We'd love to have you join the community. All right, enough of those commercials. So Selena, what's one last thing you'd like to leave listeners with?
I would love to leave listeners with a way to feel less worried around the water when they have young children around. So I have 3 practical tips that parents can use right away that I like to share. So the first is that if you have a child who is pulled towards the water and likes to go put their hands in the water and squats down by the water, and that makes you nervous, as it should, because they can topple in, teach them to lie on their belly to play in the water. So you can be right there, or you can sit beside them, but there's not so much of a worry of them just toppling, right? And they can lie on their belly and still play in the water without being in danger of falling in. So that's the first one. The second one was that if you happen to be in the pool area and you're not going to be in the pool with the little one who doesn't know how to swim, and you're working on stuff, so you're gardening or whatever, and your child wants to be with you, needs to be with you, this is a reality, right? They're not going to stay on the other side of the fence or in the house by themselves. It's not going to happen. So what do? Well, instead of being worried all the time and kind of doing your gardening up here, put a life jacket on the child. Put a certified life jacket on the child that you've tested, that you know will roll them onto their back, and let them explore. We remember the rules. We walk around the pool and we don't go in without an adult, but let them walk around the pool. And if they do fall in, you'll hear them and you'll know that they're going to be okay, because the life jacket will flip them over and you can calmly walk over to the pool. And the third piece is that if you are having a party of some sort, designate a water watcher or hire a lifeguard. Always, always, always. And what we do with water watchers is you get a button that says water watcher. So if you have that button on you as a parent, your job is to sit by the pool and watch. And the only time you get up is when you've passed it on to another parent. Yeah.
Awesome. Those are great practical tips. I love it. Thank you so much, Selena. Thank you for being here. And thank you for taking what was a terrifying trauma for you as a child and turning it into a purpose and a mission for supporting literally thousands of other kids to break through fear to the freedom and joy that's on the other side. Thank you for being here. And everybody, 9/11 or not, we live in a time of fear. So it is a wonderful opportunity to take these steps, to take curiosity and validation and ownership of the successes when you do break through, and really apply them to whatever may be holding you back. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And thanks for coming today, Selena. Have a wonderful and bodacious week, everybody. Bye for now.